Hi, this is HireRankers. Build a REST API in 5 minutes using Python. So what is a REST API? The REST API is an application programming interface which uses the HTTP protocol to get, put and post and delete the data. So let's say I have two clients. One is my mobile application, other one is my web application. So I want to serve the data both of my clients. So if I use my REST API provides request and response as in JSON data. So the JSON data, it's easy to integrate with my both web application and Android application. Whereas if I go for SOAP protocol, which requires a XML request and response, so it's very hard for me to integrate with a SOAP. So now these days everyone is using REST API. So let's talk about how we can develop a project using Python. So now you could see why we have chosen Python, because the most popular programming language in 2020 and 19, based on the survey, we found that Python is the most popular language, which is like 83% of the people, they voted for Python. Also, you could see like top 25 companies are using Python as their primary language to build the web application, to handle the large volume of data, to create the chatbot using artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now you could see, so this is a simple 4 steps. You can create your own REST API in 5 minutes. So here you could see the first step will be I'm going to install the Django framework, which will support the web application for the Python programming language. The next step, I'm going to create the project as HireRanker Skills API. And then the next step is we're going to see how I can go and adding the data into my data model. Then we can show the data through the HTTP protocol. So these are the few steps we are going to follow now. So let me open my command prompt real quick. So I'm going to my workspace. Now in few steps, I'm going to install my Django framework and create my first project. So as you see, this is a simple step to install the Django framework. Pip install Django. Since I already have my Django framework installed on my computer, you could see requirement already satisfied. So the next thing is I'm going to create a project name called HireRanker Skill. In short form, I'm going to keep HR skills. So the folder will be created. I'm going into the folder HR skills. The next step is I'm going to install the Testify framework, which will help us to create the REST API framework inside the Python project. So as I already told you before, I have also installed my Testify framework earlier. So that's why you're seeing requirement already satisfied. The next step is I'm going to create a service called API inside my HR skills. So to create the service, you have to use the manage.py class to start your project. It's startup API. So I'm creating the API service inside HR skills. So, so far we are done with our command prompt. I'm going to explain the next steps in Visual Studio Code, which is an editor. It's easy to use. If instead of using in a command prompt, I would say go for a Visual Studio Code. So as I created HR skills, it's my primary project. Inside that, I created the API service. So once you created the API service, you have to inform your HR skills, making sure you're integrating your API service inside your HR skills. For that, you have to add your API in the installed apps. So these are the predefined applications has been added while we are creating the project. So the next step is I'm going to create the model. The model is a database, like a virtual database for this session. So you know what is model view controller, right? So the view is a UI, the controller which controls the model, which model I'm going to use as based on the URL which you are going to provide. And then in the model, we are going to define the parameters to access from the controller. So the next step is I'm going to create my model called skills model. Okay. So in skills model, I have skill name and skill description and created at the date time which I'm creating my first object. So the next step is I'm going to open my command prompt over here to run few commands. So the first command is I'm going to validate whether my model, whatever I created, it has no syntax error inside the API. So for that, I'm just running my command. Okay, so the model has been created without any issues. So the next step is I'm going to use a similar command to validate my parent project. So now I validated the API, which I created the skills model. So the skills model is good, it's created, and then you can see it's inside migration. So if you go inside migration, so this is my skills model is created over here. So using migrations, the next step is I'm going to validate my HR skills using the migrate command. So you could see it's successful. So the next step is we're going to add few data into our model. For that, we have to open the shell command. So I'm sorry, I put run over here. So it starts with Python manage.py shell. So my shell command has been opened. Now you have to import your skills model over here and create an object. So I'll be creating the object now. So obj skills model, and then I'm passing my parameter in the constructor. So here you could see I made a mistake. Instead of lowercase s, I put uppercase s. As you can see inside the model, here we put lowercase skills description where I'm passing the uppercase skills description. So the shell script validating my code and then saying that I got an exception. So I'm giving the right data now. You could see it's been added. So now we added the data. Now we have to save the data using the same object. Okay, so it's done. So now we are going to save everything using the skill class. So now we are good. The next step is we need to access the URL. So for that, go to URLs. You can see we have only admin. Now I need to add my resource, which is a controller, to get the URL. So to get the URL as API slash something, you have to add the following lines, which I can tell you in real code. So here you have the admin, which has been added already. So I have the API. So when I access my API, it's gonna call skills resource.urls. So the skills resource has the class called skills resource. So I'm going to create the new resource in my API service to access my model. So let's go ahead and create the resource. So I'm going to just copy paste this one. I'm going to create a class name called resources. right? So you got resources.py. So next step is I'm going to create the resource to call my model. So here you can see I have my resource name as skill, and the resource name is going to call my model. Okay, which is a skill models dot objects dot all. So now we created the resource, and then this resource name skill has been pointed in the URL here. This is a skill resource which will find the URL. Okay, so the next step is we're going to run the project to access the URL. So the application has been running successfully. So next I'm going to open the URL to show you how it looks like. Oh, okay, I didn't save my URLs, so that's why it's showing the URL is not found. You see, the URL is not found if I use up to skill. Okay, so when I saved, you got the URL back. So, so this is how the data is getting as a REST API. So let me show you the same result in JSON format. So you could see the data in a formatted way. So this is a response. I'm going to copy this response. You can put it in JSON element and then validate the JSON. So you see the formatted value. So I added my Python language as a skill name, and I added a description as a language. So now you come to know how to create a simple REST API using Python in like few steps. So these are the steps we followed. So the first step, we install Django framework, and also you can install. So first we have to install the Python 3.7 from the following link and install Django framework. So once you install Django framework, you're going to create the web service project. To create the web service project, I use the command Django admin start project HR skills. So then go into HR skills, run few commands, install Django testify. The testify is gonna use create your REST framework, and then you have to start a new API, new API service called API. So you can use API or whichever name you want. I just put API as just I wanted to put. The next step is you have to create the model and resource. So first you have to create the model, and then you need to add the data into the model. So once you created the model, you have to create the resource to call your model. So once you are done with your resource, that's it. You're gonna run your project, and then you can call the API. Thank you. If you like this video, please subscribe HireRankers and then follow with our Facebook page to get more updates on Python, Python programming language, and any any more updates.